I should have walked past locker 26, but some doors do not open because you choose them. Some doors open because your whole life has been walking toward them in the dark. The World Cup final had ended less than an hour earlier, and the stadium still felt alive in a way that made my skin prickle. 80,000 people had screamed inside those concrete walls, and even after they were gone, the sound seemed to cling to everything. The empty seats, the wet stair rails, the silver confetti sticking to the tunnel floor like pieces of broken stars. Outside, rain slid down the glass roof in long, trembling lines, turning the field lights into blurry white halos. I was wearing a Navy staff jacket 2 sizes too big, cheap black sneakers, and a badge that said Emily Carter, Temp Operations. Nothing about me belonged in a place this enormous. Nothing about me belonged anywhere near the private locker corridor reserved for billionaires, sponsors, and men who arrived with security teams instead of friends. My job was simple. Check the lost property list. Confirm the VIP lockers were empty. Lock the corridor before the cleaning crew came through at midnight. $19 an hour, no benefits, no drama. That was what I told myself as my radio hissed against my shoulder and the stadium lights hummed overhead. I had taken the shift because my foster mother's hospital bill was sitting on our kitchen table like a threat, and because saying no to extra hours had never been a luxury in my life. The clipboard in my hand was damp from the rain that had blown in through the loading dock. Locker 62 was circled in red ink. At least, I thought it was 62. The second number had smeared into a dark blue blur. I stood in front of the steel doors, counting under my breath. 58, 59, 60, 61, 62. Then I stopped. The locker marked 62 had a fresh security seal across it, unbroken and official. But 2 doors down, locker 26 had no seal at all. Its handle was cold, polished, and wrong. There was a small reddish mark near the latch. Not much, just enough to make my stomach tighten. I should have called my supervisor. I should have stepped back, taken a picture, done anything except slide my key card into the reader. But the reader blinked green before I could even finish the thought. The lock clicked open. That sound moved through the empty corridor like a whisper that had been waiting years to be heard. I pulled the door open. There was no duffel bag inside. No cleats. No jacket. No forgotten watch from some rich man who would never miss it. There was only a small metal box, dark with age, sitting beneath the locker light. Beside it lay a folded white envelope, its edges yellowed, with 4 words written in faded black ink. For Adrian, if she survives. My mouth went dry. I reached for my radio, but it gave one sharp burst of static and died. The air changed then. I do not know how else to explain it. The corridor became too quiet. Even the rain seemed to pull back from the roof. My fingers touched the metal box, and the lid sprang open with a tiny mechanical sigh. A music box. Old. Delicate. Impossible. The melody began slowly, notes thin and trembling, filling the locker room with a lullaby I did not know and somehow almost remembered. Beneath the music box was a burned Polaroid photograph. A little girl with pale hair. A boy beside her, older, dark-haired, serious even as a child. Half the picture was gone, eaten by fire or time. Under the photograph was a tiny silver bracelet. I picked it up before fear could stop me. One name was engraved on the inside. Elena. The moment I read it, pain flashed across my wrist. Not real pain. Memory pain. The kind your body keeps after your mind has buried the reason. I looked down at the small scar near my pulse, the one my foster mother said came from an accident when I was little. Under the locker light, it looked less like a scar and more like a number. 26. Footsteps sounded at the far end of the corridor. Not hurried. Not casual. Controlled. Several pairs moving together. I turned, bracelet clenched in my fist, and saw 6 men in black suits stop beneath the flickering lights. They were not stadium security. Stadium security wore yellow badges and tired expressions. These men wore silence like a uniform. Then he stepped between them. Adrian Wolf. I knew his face, because everyone working the final had been warned not to approach him unless spoken to. Billionaire security sponsor. Private contractor. Owner of half the surveillance systems in the city, if the rumors were true. He was taller than I expected, dressed in a black overcoat that made the fluorescent lights look colder around him. His hair was dark, his face carved sharp with control, and his eyes were the pale gray of winter water. He looked at me first like I was an inconvenience. Then the music box played one more note. His gaze dropped to the bracelet in my hand. The color left his face so quickly that every man behind him went still. Not afraid of me. Afraid of what he had recognized. Where did you get that? His voice was low, almost calm, but something underneath it shook. I took one step back. It was in the locker. I'm staff. I was just checking the list. His eyes moved to the open box, the photograph, the envelope, then to my wrist. I tried to hide the scar with my sleeve, but he had already seen it. For one impossible second, Adrian Wolf looked less like a dangerous man and more like a boy staring at a ghost. What is your name? He asked. Emily Carter. The answer came too fast. Too practiced. His jaw tightened. No, he said softly. That's the name they gave you. The lights above us flickered once. Twice. Then the entire corridor went black. The darkness hit so suddenly that my breath caught in my throat. 1 second Adrian Wolf was standing beneath the fluorescent lights, staring at my wrist like it had split his life open. The next second, the corridor vanished. No seats. No lockers. No men in black suits. Only the thin, dying song of the music box inside locker 26, playing in the dark like a memory that refused to stay buried. Someone cursed softly behind Adrian. Another voice said, "Cameras are down." I heard fabric shift, shoes scrape, the quiet click of men reaching for radios that did not answer. My hand tightened around the silver bracelet until the tiny engraved letters pressed into my palm. Elena. That name meant nothing to me. It should have meant nothing. But my heart was beating too hard, like some part of me had heard it before, and was trying to get out. Do not move, Adrian said. His voice was close now. Too close. Calm enough to be terrifying. I am not going anywhere with you. I whispered. I did not ask you to go anywhere. A pale beam cut through the dark from his phone. It swept over the open locker, the burned photograph, the envelope, then stopped on my face. He looked at me as if he was trying to compare me to someone time had stolen from him. Who sent you? He asked. Nobody sent me. I work here. Temporary staff do not open sealed family evidence by accident. Evidence. The word came out thin. What evidence? His eyes flicked past me toward the far end of the corridor. For the first time, I saw something colder than suspicion cross his face. Calculation. Protection. There are people who would do anything to keep that box closed. I almost laughed because fear sometimes comes out that way. Wrong. Shaky. Useless. Then maybe you should have used a better lock. One of his men turned toward me, surprised that I had spoken back. Adrian did not. His mouth barely moved, but something in his eyes shifted. Not soft. Not kind. Just awake. That locker has not opened in 22 years, he said. It opened for you. Before I could answer, a sound came from the service tunnel behind us. 3 sharp beeps. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just electronic, clean, and wrong. Then the emergency lights blinked on, bathing the corridor in dim red. Everything looked unreal. Adrian's men stood in a half circle. Locker doors stretched along both walls like steel coffins. And at the far end, beyond the security gate, 2 people in stadium cleaning uniforms stepped into view. Their caps were low. Their faces were hidden by shadows. One lifted a badge toward the scanner. Adrian's hand rose slightly. His men froze. Cleaning crew is not scheduled for this wing, he said. The badge scanner turned green anyway. My stomach dropped. How did they get access? I asked. Adrian looked at me. Same way you did. The gate clicked open. The 2 cleaners did not rush. That scared me more. They walked with the same quiet purpose as Adrian's men, except their attention was not on him. It was on me. On the bracelet in my hand. On the open locker behind my shoulder. Adrian stepped between us before I understood what he was doing. His overcoat brushed my staff jacket. I smelled rain, expensive wool, and something sharp like winter air. Behind me, he said. I do not take orders from strangers. Tonight you do. You are the stranger. His head turned just enough for me to see his profile in the red light. No, Emily, he said quietly. I am the only person in this building who knows you are not a stranger at all. The words went through me harder than the darkness had. I wanted to deny them. I wanted to throw the bracelet back into the box, close the locker, walk out into the rain, and become a normal girl again. But normal girls did not have scars shaped like locker numbers. Normal girls did not make billionaires go pale. Normal girls did not hear an old Italian lullaby and feel like crying without knowing why. The two cleaners stopped 10 feet away. One of them smiled. "Mr. Wolf," he said, "step aside. The girl took something that does not belong to her." Adrian's voice dropped. "Everything in that locker belongs to her." The man's smile faded. My fingers went numb around the bracelet. "What is he talking about?" I whispered. Adrian did not look back. "The truth." The music box gave one final note, then stopped. In the sudden silence, the folded envelope slid from the locker shelf and landed at my feet. "For Adrian, if she survives." My hands shook as I picked it up. Adrian finally turned. For a second, the danger, the men, the red lights, all of it disappeared from his face. Only pain remained. Old pain. The kind people build empires around so no one can touch it again. "Do not open that here," he said. But I already had. I opened the envelope with hands that no longer felt like mine. The paper inside was old, folded into thirds, and so fragile the edges trembled when I touched them. There was no long letter. No explanation that made sense of the dark, the men, the music, the way Adrian Wolf looked at me like I had stepped out of a grave he had been visiting for 22 years. There was only one photograph and one sentence written in careful black ink. "If she survives, tell Adrian the Wolf did not betray the child." My pulse stumbled. "What does that mean?" I whispered. Adrian took one step toward me, but the man in the cleaning uniform moved at the same time. Every person in that corridor seemed to inhale at once. Adrian stopped without looking away from him. "Do not," he said. 2 words. Quiet. Final. The man lifted both hands, pretending innocence, but his eyes stayed on the paper. "That belongs to the families, Mr. Wolf." "No," Adrian said. "It belongs to her." Her. Not me. Not Emily. Her. The word hung between us, heavier than the red emergency lights, heavier than the sealed air in that underground corridor. I looked down at the photograph. This one had not burned. A woman stood on the edge of a soccer field, holding a little girl in a yellow raincoat. The woman was beautiful in a tired way, with pale hair tucked behind her ears and eyes that looked directly into the camera as if she knew the future would one day need proof. The little girl held a silver bracelet in one hand. Her other wrist had a dark mark drawn on it. 26. My breath left me so fast I had to grab the locker door. The metal was cold under my palm. The corridor tilted. Somewhere inside me, a door I had kept locked without knowing it began to open. Rain on a glass roof. A crowd roaring. A woman's voice whispering, "Stay with the boy." Tiny fingers gripping mine. A dark-haired child pulling me through rows of stadium seats while adults shouted behind us. Then light. Too much light. A horn blaring. My own voice crying a name I did not remember. Adrian. I looked up at him. He had gone completely still. The red light cut shadows under his cheekbones, but it could not hide what was in his eyes. Recognition. Grief. Guilt so old it had hardened into something almost invisible. "You were the boy," I said. My voice did not sound like mine. "You were there." His jaw tightened. For a second, I thought he would deny it. Men like him probably survived by denying everything. But he only looked at the photograph in my hand. "I was 12, he said. "Your mother put your hand in mine and told me not to let go." The words were soft, but they hit harder than shouting. "And did you?" He flinched. "Barely. If I had not been watching his face, I would have missed it." "Yes." The honesty stole the air from me. "Why?" "Because someone called my father's name. Because the crowd panicked. Because I was a child who thought adults knew how to save people." He looked at my wrist again. "By the time I turned back, you were gone." The man in the cleaning uniform laughed under his breath. Touching, but unfinished. Adrian's men shifted, blocking the corridor. No one moved toward me, but the tension pressed against my chest. The second cleaner reached for the radio at his shoulder and murmured something I could not hear. Adrian heard it. His expression changed. "They are sealing the exits," he said. "Who?" I asked. "The people who buried your name." My knees wanted to give out. I forced them not to. "My name is Emily Carter." Adrian's eyes came back to mine. "Emily Carter is the name they used to hide you. Elena Marie Castellan is the name your mother died protecting." The corridor became too bright, even in the red darkness. The sound of the stadium returned in my head. Not tonight's final. Another night. Older. Louder. I saw a woman kneeling in front of me, tying the bracelet around my wrist with shaking hands. I saw her smile like smiling hurt. I heard her say, "If you forget everything else, baby, remember number 26. My fingers closed around the bracelet. Why would anyone care about a child after all these years? Adrian looked at the open locker, then at the paper in my hand. Because you are not only a witness. A metallic thud echoed from the far tunnel. Then another. Doors closing. Locks engaging. The man in the cleaning uniform smiled again. This time, it reached his eyes. Adrian stepped closer to me, lowering his voice until only I could hear him. You are the key. Before I could ask to what, the old music box started playing again by itself. The music box should have been empty of power, empty of purpose, empty of anything except dust and memory. But the tiny melody rose from Locker 26 with impossible clarity, soft and trembling beneath the red emergency lights. Every man in the corridor heard it. Every face changed. Even the two people in cleaning uniforms stopped smiling. Adrian turned slowly toward the open locker, and for the first time since he had appeared, I saw fear move through him like a shadow under ice. Not fear for himself. Fear for what the song had awakened. That should not be playing, one of his men whispered. Adrian did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the metal box. I looked inside again, careful not to touch anything else. Beneath where the bracelet had been, the velvet lining had lifted at one corner. A small blue light blinked under the fabric. Once, twice, like a heartbeat. Emily, Adrian said, using the wrong name because maybe he knew I needed one familiar thing to hold on to. Step away from it. I wanted to. I truly did. But my body moved before my fear could stop it. I peeled back the old velvet with 2 fingers and found a second compartment. Inside was a flat silver drive no bigger than a house key, and beside it, a tiny strip of plastic sealed in yellowed tape. A hospital identification band. The letters were faded, but I could still read them. Baby girl Castellan. My throat closed. The corridor, the men, the stadium, all of it blurred around the edges. That is not possible, I said. Adrian came closer, slow this time, like he was approaching a frightened animal. What is not possible? I held up the band. My foster mother told me I was found after a house fire. No records. No family. No one came looking. His face hardened, but his voice stayed low. Someone came looking every year. I looked at him. You? He did not blink. Me? The simplicity of it made the floor feel unsteady. For 22 years, I had believed being unwanted was the first fact of my life. An empty file. A fake birthday. A childhood built out of missing pages. And now this man, this dangerous stranger with winter eyes, was telling me I had not been abandoned. I had been hidden. There is a kind of pain that does not feel like pain at first. It feels like silence. It opens inside your chest and waits. The cleaner near the gate moved suddenly, reaching for the drive. Adrian's hand shot out, not to hurt him, but to stop the distance between them from closing. His voice cut through the corridor. One more step, and this becomes public. The cleaner froze. The word public changed everything. It made Adrian's men look at the drive. It made the fake cleaners look at each other. It made me understand that whatever was in my hand was not just old family history. It was leverage. Proof. A truth powerful enough to frighten people who did not frighten easily. What is on it? I asked. Adrian's gaze stayed on the men at the gate. Names. Payments. Protection records. The night your family disappeared, your mother copied everything. She was going to turn it over after the final match. A final match? I whispered. At the old stadium, he said. This one was built over it. The memory struck so hard I nearly dropped the drive. Green seats. Rain on concrete. My small hand sticky with cotton candy. A woman kneeling in front of me, pressing something cold into my palm. Not the bracelet. A key card. Locker 26. I breathed. Adrian turned to me. You remember. I shook my head, but the memory kept coming. She told me not to cry. She told me if the song played, I had to give the box to the boy with the gray eyes. Adrian's face changed so completely, it almost hurt to look at him. The power remained. The control remained. But beneath it was the boy from the photograph, still standing in a crowd, still holding out a hand to a little girl he had lost. I waited, he said, so softly I barely heard him. For years, I waited. A loudspeaker crackled above us. The stadium system came alive with a burst of static. Then a man's voice filled the corridor, smooth, older, almost amused. Adrian, you always were too sentimental. Adrian went still. His men looked toward the ceiling. I saw his expression shut down, door by door, until nothing human showed except his eyes. "Who is that?" I whispered. He did not answer fast enough. The voice spoke again. "Send the girl in the drive to the owner's suite. Come alone, or her foster mother's hospital room becomes a very lonely place." My blood turned cold. Not because he threatened me, because he knew about my mother. The woman who had raised me. The woman whose bills had put me in this stadium tonight. Adrian looked at me, and I saw the choice form between us. The drive in my hand. The truth in the locker. The only mother I had ever known, suddenly pulled into a war she did not even know existed. "Tell me the truth," I said, my voice shaking. "Can you protect her?" Adrian stepped close enough that the red light caught the silver in his eyes. "Yes." "Can I trust you?" His answer was not immediate. That made me believe it more. "Not because I am good," he said. "Because I failed you once." The loudspeaker hissed. The old voice laughed softly. Adrian held out his hand, not for the drive, but for me. "This time," he said, "I do not let go." Adrian's hand waited between us, steady in the red light, and I hated how badly I wanted to take it. Not because I trusted him. Trust was too clean a word for what stood in that corridor. I took it because my radio was dead, the exits were sealing one by one. A stranger on the loudspeaker knew my foster mother's hospital room, and the only person who looked more furious than afraid was the man who said he had spent 22 years searching for me. His fingers closed around mine. Firm. Controlled. Not ownership. "Anchor. Stay behind my left shoulder," he said. "Why left?" My voice shook despite every effort to make it sharp. "Because my men are watching the right." It should not have comforted me. It did. We moved fast, but not blindly. Adrian did not run. Men like him did not run unless the world was ending, and maybe not even then. He guided me away from the fake cleaners, past the open locker, through a service door I had never noticed because it blended into the concrete wall. One of his men closed it behind us and pressed a black card against a hidden panel. The door locked with a deep mechanical sound. The corridor beyond was narrower, colder, lit by green emergency strips along the floor. Somewhere above us, the stadium groaned in the rain. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Owner's suite." "That is where the voice told us to go." "Yes." I stopped so abruptly that his hand tightened around mine. "That sounds like a terrible plan." Adrian looked back at me. In the green light, his gray eyes looked almost silver. "It is." "Then why are we doing it?" "Because he mentioned your foster mother to control you. That means he does not have her yet." I swallowed. The silver drive felt heavy in my jacket pocket, heavier than something so small had any right to be. "How do you know?" "Because if he had her, he would have let you hear her voice." The answer was so cold, so precise, that it chilled me. But beneath it was something I had not expected. Relief. Measured. Hidden. Real. "My people are already moving to her hospital," he said. Quietly. No police. No panic. I looked at him. "You can do that. I can do many things that will make you hate me later." "I already hate you a little." For the first time, almost impossibly, his mouth softened at one corner. Not a smile. The memory of one. "Good. Hate keeps people awake." We climbed 2 flights through a private stairwell. My cheap sneakers squeaked on the concrete. Adrian's men moved around us without speaking, shadows with earpieces and calm hands. I kept thinking about the photograph. The little girl in the yellow raincoat. The boy beside her. Adrian at 12, failing once and building a life around never failing again. It did not make him safe. It made him human in a way I did not know what to do with. At the landing, he stopped and pulled something from inside his coat. Not a weapon. A small black phone. He handed it to me. "Call your foster mother." My breath caught. Now. Now. My fingers fumbled over the screen. I knew her number by heart, because she was the only home I had ever had. The call rang once. Twice. 3 times. Then her tired voice answered. "Emily." I nearly broke. "Mom." Adrian looked away immediately, giving me the only privacy he could in a concrete stairwell full of men. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You sound strange." I pressed my hand over my mouth for 1 second, then forced the words out. "I need you to listen to me. Do not open the door for anyone except the nurse named Diane, okay? Adrian's people are coming to help." Silence. Then, softer, "Adrian." My heart stopped. "You know that name?" Her. Breathing changed. The hospital monitor beeped faintly in the background. "Baby," she whispered, and I had never heard her sound so old. If he found you, then the past found you too. The stairwell seemed to shrink around me. What did you know? I asked. I knew your first name was not Emily. Pain moved through me, sharp and quiet. And you never told me? I promised the woman who handed you to me that I would keep you alive before I kept you informed. My eyes burned. Adrian turned back at the sound of my silence. Not pity, recognition, like he understood exactly how betrayal could be made of love. What was my name? I asked, even though I already knew. My foster mother cried then. One small broken sound. Elena. Before I could answer, the stairwell speaker crackled overhead. The older man's voice returned, amused and close. Touching, truly, but family reunions are better in person. Adrian snatched the phone from my hand and looked at the screen. His jaw locked. He traced the call. A metal door slammed somewhere below us. Then another above. We were trapped between floors. Adrian stepped in front of me again, calm as winter. Listen to me, he said. When that door opens, you give me the drive. I shook my head. No, his eyes narrowed. Emily. I lifted my chin even as my hands trembled. Elena. The name left my mouth like a key turning. Adrian went still. I pulled the silver drive from my pocket and held it against my chest. If I am the key, I said, then I decide which door opens. Above us, the lock began to turn. We moved through the stairwell in silence. The only sounds the faint drip of water from a leaking pipe and our own breathing. The green emergency strips along the floor cast a surreal light that made the concrete walls look almost fluid, bending around us. My fingers never left the silver drive in my jacket pocket. Every step made my pulse rise. Every step reminded me that the entire stadium could be sealed, every exit watched, every shadow holding someone who knew more about my life than I did. Adrian walked beside me, calm, measured, his hand occasionally brushing mine. Not a touch, but a presence. He did not speak much, because words could make mistakes. Only once did he glance at me, his gray eyes sharp as winter steel. Do you understand why this is important? He asked. I nodded, but the truth was, I barely understood anything. The music box had stopped, but the weight of its songs still lingered, vibrating in my chest. We reached a landing where the stairwell turned sharply. A steel door blocked our path. Adrian pressed a card to a hidden scanner, and the lock clicked. Beyond it, a narrow service corridor stretched toward the upper suites, dimly lit and lined with utility panels and doors. I noticed the faint smell of ozone and the lingering scent of wet turf from the field below. It felt like the stadium was breathing around us. I could not stop thinking about the photograph, the little girl, the woman, the words, if she survives. Adrian's hand tightened slightly around mine. You are safe while we are moving, he said, low calm. But only if you follow directions. One wrong step, and they will know exactly where to look. My throat closed. I nodded. Every instinct screamed that the men on the speaker were already tracking us, that we were running out of time, that my foster mother could be in danger, that I had been walking into a web I had never known existed. Why did she leave this for me? I asked quietly, clutching the drive. Adrian did not answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer to the wall and activated a hidden panel. A small hatch opened, revealing a ladder that climbed vertically to a maintenance platform overlooking the suites. I swallowed hard. The ladder was narrow, unsteady, and impossibly high. You first, he said. My stomach flipped. Are you kidding? He shook his head slightly. No. You first. I will follow. Keep the drive tight. Do not look down. My hands shook, but I climbed. Each rung pressed against my sneakers with a slick, metallic sound that echoed through the concrete shaft. Halfway up, I dared to glance back. Adrian's figure was calm, almost statuesque, framed by the green strips and the shadows of the stairwell. I felt a strange trust forming, forced and uneasy, but undeniable. At the top, I pulled myself onto the platform, the height making. My legs trembled. Adrian followed without hesitation, landing beside me, the platform creaking under his weight. The view through the narrow window above was dizzying. Stadium seats stretched out like a sea of shadows, the field a dark green rectangle, and rain falling in diagonal streaks through the glass roof. We need to move fast, he said, scanning the access points. They will figure out where you are in minutes if they think the drive is important. I gripped the device tighter. How do you know they want it? Because only they care enough to track a temporary worker at this hour, he said. His voice was quiet, but each word landed with precision. You are the key, Elena. Not the locker, not the drive, not the past. They want you. My stomach tightened. The wind gusted through the open platform, rattling the thin metal railings. Adrian stepped behind me, placing a hand on my back, guiding me toward the next maintenance door. I cannot promise this will be easy, he said. I can promise you will survive if you listen. I nodded, barely breathing. Each step forward felt like stepping out of a life I thought I knew into a world constructed entirely of shadows, decisions, and promises I could not yet understand. Every heartbeat echoed louder than the last, and the silver drive seemed heavier with each passing second, carrying the weight of secrets I was only beginning to comprehend. We emerged from the maintenance platform into a narrow service corridor, the emergency lights casting long shadows that made the walls feel closer, tighter, like the building itself was holding its breath. The air smelled faintly of wet concrete and ozone, a reminder of the storm outside and the vast stadium we had just left behind. I could hear the distant hum of the city, muffled through layers of concrete and steel, but it felt far away, almost unreal. Adrian walked beside me, every step measured, his hand occasionally brushing mine, as if to remind me of the only constant I had in the corridor. The silver drive felt impossibly heavy in my pocket, like it contained not just information, but the weight of a life I had only just begun to understand. Do you understand now why this matters? He asked quietly, not as a question, but as a statement, and I swallowed hard, nodding despite the confusion twisting inside me. Each step forward made the past feel more present, more tangible, like the air itself had memory. We reached a corner where the corridor widened, and the first hints of the owner's suite appeared through a narrow doorway, faint lights spilling out onto the concrete floor. Adrian paused, scanning the hall, the way someone watches for invisible threats, calculating every angle, every possible movement. Once we passed that door, he said, everything changes. No turning back, no half measures. My fingers tightened around the drive, the plastic cool and solid, a physical reminder that decisions had already been made for me before I even knew who I was. I am ready, I said, even though my voice sounded small and brittle in the corridor. He nodded once, and we moved forward. The door slid open silently, revealing a short flight of steps that led to the upper levels, a view overlooking the suites where the stormlight from the field above cast jagged reflections across polished floors. Every sound echoed differently up here. The faint drip of a leaky pipe, the distant hum of electricity, the soft rustle of his coat as he moved ahead of me. My pulse hammered in my ears. Stay close, Adrian instructed, and I obeyed instinctively, drawn by something deeper than trust, a combination of fear and recognition I did not yet understand. Each step felt like moving through history, through a life that had been constructed around secrets and careful observation, and I could feel the presence of all those who had walked these corridors before, all those who had kept the past hidden. At the top, we reached a small landing with a narrow observation panel overlooking the suites. The green strips along the floor flickered faintly, illuminating the polished metal rails and the empty spaces beyond. Adrian glanced down at the drive in my hand. This is the moment, he said. Whatever is inside that drive, they want it. But it is not just a drive. It is you, your story, the proof that they cannot erase. I nodded, my fingers trembling, and for a moment, the wind gusted through a ventilation shaft, carrying the faint scent of rain and turf from the field below. Adrian stepped behind me, close enough that his presence pressed against my back, steadying me even as the uncertainty threatened to unbalance me. You are ready, he whispered. No one else can carry this. It is yours. I exhaled slowly, letting the weight settle, feeling the magnitude of the moment press into every nerve. The door ahead creaked softly, a sound amplified in the quiet corridor, and I knew that what awaited us beyond it would change everything, reveal truths I had been too young to remember and too protected to know. Adrian gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze, a reminder that I was not alone, and together we moved forward into the unknown, the storm outside still raging, the city sleeping, and the past and present colliding with every step. We reached the doorway at last, the dim light from the suites spilling over the threshold and illuminating the polished floor in streaks of gold and silver. The corridor behind us was silent, but I knew every shadow held eyes, tracking our movements, calculating, waiting. Adrian motioned me forward. "Through here," he said, voice calm and low, as though speaking louder might make the world fracture around us. I stepped inside. The drive pressed against my chest like it contained the entirety of my past and a future I had not yet dared to imagine. The room smelled faintly of leather and polished wood, the air thick with anticipation. Beyond the narrow passage, the owner's suite opened into a space I had only ever glimpsed from television broadcasts. Expansive windows overlooked the stadium, now dark and empty except for the reflections of distant lightning. Every step I took echoed against marble floors. Adrian followed, silent, his presence a steady anchor amidst the tension. On a desk near the window sat an envelope identical to the one I had found in the locker. I realized immediately that everything, the drive, the envelope, the music box, the stairwell, Adrian himself, was orchestrated for this precise moment. "Place the drive here," Adrian instructed, pointing to a small metal panel built into the desk. My fingers trembled as I set it down. The moment it touched the panel, a faint hum began, and the lights along the perimeter of the suite shifted, highlighting hidden compartments and screens embedded into the walls. A holographic projection flickered to life above the desk, displaying old photographs, documents, and a ledger that recorded names and dates spanning decades. My breath caught. I saw my mother in a photograph I had never known existed, holding a baby, smiling faintly at a man whose face was familiar now but had remained a ghost in my memory. Everything she kept, everything she protected, it all leads here, Adrian said quietly, standing behind me. I could feel the weight of every secret, every hidden truth, pressing down, and yet in that same weight, I sensed clarity forming. The drive was not just evidence. It was a map of choices made, lives protected, and betrayals avoided. "Why me?" I whispered, voice trembling. Adrian's gray eyes met mine. "Because she trusted you," he said. "Because they tried to erase the past, and you survived." A flicker on one of the projection screens revealed figures moving in the stadium below, shadows slipping along service corridors, scanning, searching. "They are here," Adrian murmured, and every instinct in me screamed to run. But I did not. His hand found mine again, firm and grounding. "Do not move until I say," he instructed. Together, we watched the projections. Names, dates, locations, and connections appeared in sequence, a puzzle decades in the making. Each revelation made the stakes higher, the responsibility heavier, yet clearer. I realized that in this room, in this precise moment, I was no longer the girl from the stadium corridors. I was the key to understanding what had happened, to protecting what remained. Adrian's voice was steady in the quiet. "The past is alive, Elena. And now, it belongs to you to carry forward." The hum from the drive grew slightly louder, and the holographic display expanded, illuminating every corner of the suite. Outside, the rain fell harder, streaking the windows with silver lines that reflected the intensity of what had been hidden and what was finally revealed. My heart pounded, and though fear surged through me, a strange clarity followed, a knowledge that whatever came next, I would face it, not alone, but with him guiding the path forward, one careful, deliberate step at a time. The suite was silent except for the faint hum of the drive and the soft tapping of rain against the large glass windows. I held the silver device tightly, feeling the pulse of history it carried, the weight of names, dates, and decisions that had shaped not only my life but the lives of everyone connected to that locker. Adrian stood beside me, gray eyes scanning the projection above the desk, his expression unreadable, calculating, yet somehow softer than it had ever been in the corridors. "Everything you see here," he said, voice low, deliberate, "was hidden for a reason. Your mother wanted to protect you, to keep the past from destroying what remained of the family. She trusted me to ensure that you would survive, even if it meant keeping the truth from you." I swallowed hard, my mind spinning with images of a child I had been, a mother I had barely known, and a life I had never remembered. "Why now?" I asked, my voice trembling despite the steadiness I tried to maintain. Adrian's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, anchoring me. "Because hiding the truth only works for so long. The people who wanted to erase everything are still moving, still watching. They believe the past can stay buried. They are wrong. My fingers brushed the edge of the photograph on the desk, the little girl in yellow staring back at me, the same eyes I now recognized in the gray reflection of Adrian's own. "I do not know if I am ready," I whispered. He turned to face me fully, his gaze unwavering. "You already are. You survived everything without knowing it. This is the moment you step into what was always yours." A screen flickered to life in the corner, showing a map of the stadium, highlighted routes, points of entry, and surveillance coverage. Adrian pointed to a stairwell that led to the rooftop terrace. "From there, we can ensure that nothing is left for them to find. You deliver the drive, and they will have nothing. Every step must be precise, calculated. One misstep, and the opportunity is lost." I felt a shiver of fear and excitement. The corridor outside the suite seemed farther away than ever, a labyrinth of concrete and shadows that I had navigated only with Adrian guiding me. "And my foster mother?" I asked, clutching the drive tighter. His expression softened, a hint of the boy he had been flickering beneath the man he had become. "She is safe. For now. The moment you move, she is untouchable, but she must remain unaware. You are the one who carries the truth, the evidence, the key. Not her. You." The hum from the drive grew slightly louder, almost responsive, as if it knew its contents were being acknowledged. I took a deep breath and nodded. The decision to move forward was not just mine, it was ours. Adrian extended his hand toward the door, the one that led to the stairwell. "When we leave this room," he said, "everything changes. Your past, your future, the people who wanted to erase you. They all hinge on what happens next. Are you ready?" I looked down at the silver drive, then back at him, and for the first time since entering this suite, I felt clarity piercing through the fear. "I am ready," I said, my voice steady. He gave a brief nod, the kind that confirmed plans already set into motion, then led the way toward the stairwell, each step purposeful, every shadow, every reflection, every heartbeat in rhythm, with the understanding that what we were about to do would decide the survival of truths that had been buried far too long. The suite fell behind us, the rain outside lashing harder against the glass, the city beyond silent and unaware, and I knew that once we descended, there would be no turning back from the path we had chosen, no retreat, only forward into the revelations and the responsibilities that had waited for decades to be claimed.